You're watching the webinar Keeping Cargo on Rail between Europe and Asia. Hello everyone and welcome in today's webinar Keeping Cargo on Rail between Europe and Asia. As the title already suggests, this is a webinar where we will try to explore some possibilities and opportunities for companies to keep transiting their cargo between Europe and Asia by using rail. Of course, technically, transit through Russia is still possible. However, there are companies who are looking for alternatives. And this is what this webinar is all about. Now, before we start, I would like to underline that this is a purely business-focused webinar where we will try to find a way to assist companies or provide some ideas for alternatives for transit between Europe and Asia. And it is not a place where we express political views. Now, as I mentioned before, this is all about Europe-Asia. How can we keep volumes running between these two regions? And for this purpose, we have three online guests. I would like to welcome Cankat Yildiz from Middle Corridor Logistics. Hello, Cankat. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
I would like to also welcome Mr. Hongming Fang from China Wuwei Bonded Logistics Center and his assistants who will be translating for him today. Greetings from Rotterdam to China. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
And our last but not least guest is Nils Müller from DSV Air&Sea. Hello, Nils. Good morning. Hi. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, we can hear you. And of course, on the table right next to me is my colleague from RailFreight.cn, Yildiz. Hello, Yildiz.
Hello, Nikos.
Yildiz will also be monitoring the webinar's chat, so make sure that if you have any questions, drop them there and we will try to address them with our speakers for today. So, welcome everybody, officially. We would like to start with you, Yildiz, in the discussion. So, could you provide us with an overview of the current situation on the Eurasian supply chain, maybe?
Well, I think everybody will agree that the industry is now facing a totally different scenario compared to what it was 3 weeks ago. Back to the time then, we were talking about how to get the shipping space on the trains, how to avoid the congested roads, how to deal with the dramatically increasing volumes on the corridor. But now it's more like how to keep the clients stay on the rail and how to assure the security on the corridor. So I think things has been changed totally.
It's completely different from what we used to discuss about, right? The focus has already completely changed.
Yeah.
Yes, keeping clients on rail, I think that's the burning issue currently.
Yeah.
Okay, how are companies dealing with it, do you think? Is it tough currently?
Yeah, it is tough. We have seen many giant international forwarders and operators decided to suspend their rail services. And some rail logistics companies even reported that over 50% of their clients decided to drop off the rail. And as some of you might know, as a response to Russia's invasion to Ukraine, EU has already imposed 4 waves of sanctions on both Russia and Belarus, targeting mainly on the banking and products exporting. As we talked from the previous webinar, it doesn't directly influence the rail services on the corridor, but it did create a lot of disruptions and hurdles. For example, payment can be an issue, and the legitimacy of a European company to get involved in this business can be a question mark as well. So I think that's people are now insecure about the stability on the corridor, and they just basically don't want to do anything with the Russian railways. So.
You mentioned about disruption, so could you please briefly explain where the disruptions are focusing? Is it mainly the route through Russia?
So as we can see, here we have, I can explain the broad picture of the whole New Silk Road concept. We have this main road via Russia and Belarus all the way to Poland. This is the main road. And also we have this sea rail multimodal connections where Russian ports at the far east of Kaliningrad. And these two solutions handled almost 80% or 90% of the volumes on the corridor. So if you don't want to deal with Russian companies or Russian railways, there is barely possibilities from the north. And we used to have this solution via Ukraine, but you know what happened there. The railway between Ukraine and Russia was totally destroyed to stop the military supplies. So, of course, it cannot work anymore. Then we have, now people's attention has been shifted to the south, which is known as the middle corridor. And there are variations of the roads on the corridor, but basically the direction is from China to Central Asia across the Caspian Sea, and from Georgia you can either go to Turkey or take vessels on the Black Sea.
Okay, so this is the main alternative that companies are looking now, right?
Yeah.
Are there also many maybe sea alternatives? Have you heard about companies that used to use
I think
rail?
in this tough time, people are becoming very creative. There are even sea shipping lines. You go to some European ports in the south, then you serve the market in the north.
Okay.
Yeah.
But rail-wise, the main alternative currently, at least that's what we hear from the market, is the middle corridor, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, and of course the middle corridor will occupy most of our interest and discussion for today. This is why we have our specialized guest with us today. And Cankat, I would like to start with you if it is possible.
Yes.
Hello. So Cankat, you're from the middle corridor logistics. So as the title of your company suggests, the name of your company suggests, it's all about logistics in the middle corridor. Now, I think that you know the corridor very well, so I'd like you to explain a bit to us, to provide some basic info about the middle corridor. Where does it start from? Where does it end? What countries does it involve? And if it has like some diverse routes, like apart from Turkey and the Black Sea, for example.
Well, actually, Willen explained it in general. It's coming from China through Kazakhstan, and then from Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan and Georgia. Then from Georgia, either by Potiport or BTK line to Turkey. This is the main road.
Okay.
Briefly, this corridor works in 2-3 years, and it's getting improved.
I think that I have seen some services taking place apart from Kazakhstan through other Central Asian countries as well, like Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, if I'm not mistaken. Is this like a diversion of the main middle corridor route, and is it a viable solution? Does it work properly?
Well, there's a line, but compared to Kazakhstan, China-Europe transports of this line are not very effective at the moment. Border crossings, port services, there are some issues there. It's mostly used for CIS to Europe transports. But nowadays, we are in talks with the authorities in these countries. Even today, there's a meeting, it's held in Uzbekistan, in order to increase the efficiency of the line. And I think the capacity will increase over time.
Okay. You mentioned something about border crossings. Is the infrastructure, apart from border crossings, sufficient in these countries?
Well, it's getting improved, but it's not as sufficient as, for example, Kazakhstan border crossings.
Okay.
We can see it.
So who are the main players on this middle corridor? How the cooperation goes? Who are the main players?
Main players. In this issue, we should mention about the Trans-Caspian International Transport Road. It's an organization created by the partner countries. It starts from the Southeast Asia to China. It runs through, as I said, from Kazakhstan, Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and further. We are the main players, the companies and governmental organizations. Industry and the government leaders in these countries came together and started to implement a common action plan. We have always been at the key point, so we know the issue very well. There's a serious determination and development potential here. I mean, we have the equipment pool, we have common pricing, so we are solving the problems by gathering together very often. So we are the key players. These countries are the key players in this line.
Mm-hmm. So how does the cooperation actually works, like in practical perspective? So the institution.
Well,
Go ahead.
we come together. You can check from our website, middlecorridor.com. We come together regularly, and the problems and the issues and the future plans are evaluated there, and we can get solutions in shorter terms. It works very properly.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I might interrupt you, we are talking about cooperation and that the main players are coming together. There are some whispers, let's say, in the market that there is a new joint venture in the works between national railway companies of the countries involved in the corridor. Is this true? Are there any discussions taking place currently?
It's not something new. It has been taught in recent few years.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it's time to establish such a company. We should discuss about it, because nowadays we have in a different situation now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what will the added value of such a company be for the corridor?
Well, it may be get the solutions a bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there will be some financial advances, but we should see, and we should wait and see the results, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And speaking of main players on the corridor, I would have to mention the Wuwei. It's a Chinese city from the province Gansu. It's one of the first players who are launching connections on this corridor. And
one of the ancient players, one of the most ancient participants of the New Silk Road, right?
Actually, Gansu is one of the most important logistic hub on the ancient Silk Road. Mm-hmm. So it has a very good history. So I would like to address some questions to our another guest from China, Mr. Fang. Are you there? Hello, Mr. Fang.
Okay.
I would like to ask you to introduce a bit about the connection between Wuwei and the Georgia capital, Tbilisi. Is it running regularly now?
Yes, it's running regularly. The frequency is once a week, and the average time of the transport is 20 days.
20 days, from Gansu to all the way to Georgia. 20 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it a good transit time? Is it a fast one? Do you consider it to be a fast transit time?
Excuse me?
Do you consider this transit type to be fast? Can it become better, or is it okay like that?
Yes, it's much faster. It's definitely.
Okay. Yes. Go on.
Then I have heard that Uway has a close cooperation with Georgia in both governmental and business level. And together with Georgia Railways, you have established 2 bonded logistics centers on both sides, one in Wuwei and recently one in the port of Porti. Could you tell us more about this logistics center? How does it help the train service between?
Actually, we think it is very convenient for transit trip and bonded delivery of goods between Central Europe, Central Africa, China, and Middle East countries. And the next step, we plan to establish a China-Georgia free trade zone in Tbilisi with our partners to interact with international interact with Gansu Wuwei International Land Port. And we want to promote our product and manufacturing industries go abroad with the construction of this channel. So it's very important. And we also wanted to
Sorry to interrupt. I think that some of the guests have their microphones open, so I would like ask everyone who is in the Zoom link to turn off their mics, mute themselves, please, because we cannot hear our speakers. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I can speak in Chinese. Hello. 大家好，请各位在 Zoom 里面的观众，请你们把你们的麦克风关闭，不然我们没有办法跟我们的嘉宾进行沟通，可以吗？谢谢合作。Okay,
we solved this. Sorry about the disruption. We can continue.
Okay, I'll continue. And as I just said, there are a lot of benefits from the bonded logistical warehouse and the free trade zone with Georgia. And actually, at present, we also discussing the cooperation with Budapest of Hungary, and we're also planning on setting up a bonded overseas warehouse to realize the bonded logistic between Wuwei, Tbilisi, Poti, and Budapest in the future. And we think it's also going to promote the cooperation and international trade between China and European countries.
So the connection, so Budapest and Poti is connected by sea or other modalities?
Yeah, it takes some time to translate, but I think it's worth the wait.
It will take 3 days from Poti to Constantine, and then the ship will continue to Budapest.
So if I understand correctly, there will be a sea connection from the port of Poti in Georgia through the Black Sea to Romania, if I understand correctly, and then through a river connection, like inland shipping, you will reach Budapest?
Inland shipping?
Yes.
Repeat that?
Is that a yes, or I didn't understand?
I mean, I didn't hear the question very clearly.
Sorry. From what I understood, you will connect the port of Poti from Georgia to Romania, right? Through the Black Sea.
Yes.
And
to Romania.
From Romania, how will you reach Budapest?
We will keep change into the railway.
Okay.
From Romania to Budapest.
So
within 2 days.
Okay, great. Okay, that's understandable.
And I also heard this road will be all the way extended to Europe. Is that on planning or is it working now?
We are working on the construction, and we are working on the negotiation with other parties.
So where are these cargoes from? Are they local shippers, or you also collect cargoes from other cities?
Basically from other cities.
Okay, great. Now, Hulin, do we have any questions from our audience that you would like to address to our speakers so far?
Yes. So one of the audience asked, is dangerous good working on this line via Caspian Sea? any options on middle corridors for dangerous cargo? I would like to address this question maybe to Cankat.
Well, what does they mean about the dangerous? Because Caspian Sea shipping is running regularly from Aktau, Baku, and Turkmenbashi.
By dangerous goods, I think they mean chemicals and...
Okay.
Factories,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, there are some restrictions. We need to check the MSDS documents at first. Especially from the BTK line, there are some, as I said, some restrictions. But nowadays we are talking to solve these restrictions a bit more. So yes, there is, but I think in the future we will manage it.
All right.
So there are rumors saying the Black Sea is not working because of the military supplies of Russia. Is that correct?
There are military ships in the Black Sea, so does it cause any disruption currently?
Well, of course, it is. Some important ports are closed nowadays. You know the reason, but transportation continues. Actually, the main issue is here. Our European colleagues have insurance concerns on this line. I understand that. For them, we have activated another option, transporting their cargoes by trucking from Baku to westbound. So both options are open now. Yes, there are some concerns on Black Sea, but we have another option for them.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now, Cankat, I would like to stick to Turkey, because Turkey, of course, seems to is the land bridge connecting Europe and Asia through the Middle Corridor. So I would like to ask, what exactly is its role? How can someone reach Turkey from Europe, and how can they use Turkey to transit towards the Middle Corridor and China, maybe?
Well, Turkey geographically is a kind of land bridge, you know, between Asia and Europe. It's clearly seen, and Turkey has taken important steps to develop this line from the beginning, from the decision of BTK line, that Baku, Tbilisi, and Kars. We have been instrumental in establishing these processes from the very beginning. Well, it's running, but there's some issues as well. Due to the pandemic and now the Ukraine-Russia event, the railway line is very congested. Transit times have extended. We should be clear about it.
Yes.
Let's face about the problem. So the solution is to produce multimodal or intermodal solutions besides BTK. And we have started to do it. Already mentioned, from Poti to European ports by ship.
Yes.
And we have organized from Baku by trucking. Well, these models reduce the transit times a lot and reduce the pressure on the BTK line as well. We are in cooperation with European colleagues on this issue.
Okay.
Their approach is very important here in order to realize this solution properly. So we are open for more common projects. You know, no one can do this operation alone.
Yes, of course.
There should be cooperation between the parties.
You said that the BTK line is quite congested currently, but are the rest of the solutions enough to, you know, handle the increased demand and the volumes that are currently coming there now?
Well, it depends on the demand. During last 2 weeks, our phones are exhausted. Let me say it. There's a huge demand, and let's face it, if we cannot nowadays carry out all the potential of the Northern Corridor, but we can create solutions. And besides BTK line, as I explained, the tracking option, the Poti option, they are open and they are running now. So we need to produce more multimodal solutions together. So it will be beneficial for all parties, both the exporters and importers, both the European side and the Asian side.
Yes, but we need to create multimodal solutions. You said that, and I agree with it. But we see that many of the multimodal solutions in the Middle Corridor currently, like the link to through the Caspian Sea, for instance, are facing quite many problems. And they are also considered like the main bottlenecks of the corridor. So is there something like a concrete solution between the countries involved to maybe make the conditions better and more efficient and trustworthy for the companies?
Well, for Caspian Sea, if you ask, there are three main ports, Aktau, Baku, Turkmenbashi, as I said. For the efficient operation of this line, 2 ships were placed only for China-Europe transports, only for them, nothing else. It provides service between the ports. So, as you can imagine, most of the load goes from east to west. The return is usually empty, and it's subsidized by the parties.
Okay.
As the line activity increases, the transports and the ships in this direction will also improve. And in this manner, we should to see more cooperation with the European companies and Chinese ones as well.
Okay, so I want to get this clear. You said that there are vessels in the Caspian Sea for westbound volumes, right?
Yes.
But what happens now that companies want to use the corridor maybe for eastbound volumes as well? This is the real problem, right?
Yes, because it's empty, almost empty.
Okay.
So how many vessels are running weekly across Caspian Sea for now?
Two vessels are only for China and Europe transports. There are more vessels, but these two are placed only for China-Europe Silk Road transports.
How many containers can it handle for one vessel? So we can have a basic idea.
It depends. One of them is more than 100, the other is a bit more. But the vessels are changed a few months ago, so the capacity increased. Now bigger vessels are on service.
All right.
So I think we can make a very simple calculation. If we say 250 containers on both vessels in total, which can handle like maybe 5 trains a week, then we see the maximum of the capacity on the middle corridor, since the capacity is not avoidable, right?
Yes, there is such limitation, but again, I repeat it. If there is more cooperation, there can be new vessels. It's not a problem. It's not something a big issue.
Cankat, let me ask you one more question before we move to Mr. Fang, because I want to see his perspective as well on this issue. So there are many issues currently. In simple words, is it worth it for a company to take the middle corridor currently, or is it more efficient for a company to use another alternative like sea transport? What would you think?
Well, middle corridor is an option, a real option. I can tell it directly. And in order to improve the transport capacity and transit times, we have solutions. We will have more solutions, but it doesn't mean that we can handle with the all demand coming from the northern side. We will lose some customers to Seaway. It's clear.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that we can improve the line and we can make more capacity by time.
Yes, maybe this is also an opportunity.
Yes.
Under the circumstances. Great. Yes, let's see what Mr. Fang has to say.
Yeah, so let's ask the same question to Mr. Fang. How confident are you in this middle corridor compared to sea?
问那房子有什么对于动物问题有什么问题？你不说呀？
Sorry?
Hello, could you speak English?
I think we have another technical issue here, but yes, Mr. Fang, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'll start answering the question. We think the middle corridor is a much better choice, of course, because it's faster and it's cheaper than sea transport. And China, Europe freight trains are more convenient. So we think this middle corridor is better. And the traditional sea transport will take longer because it has to take the detour. So in the future, we believe the China-Europe freight train will bring the convenience not only in the transportation part, but also in the trade part. That's our opinion about this question.
And China, I think China Railways are in control for the overall capacity distributed to different cities. Could you tell us how does it work? How many trains are you allowed to launch from Gansu on middle corridor?
Actually, at present, there's no control of the number of this. And we can prepare 8 to 10 trains every month.
8 to 10 trains. Okay, thank you. Now I would like to involve our third guest for the day. Nils, are you still with us?
Yes, sure, thanks.
Nice. Thank you for being here today, Nils. So you're from DSV, right? You're manager of rail at DSV. So I wanted to ask you, was DSV using the New Silk Road before the war occurred in Ukraine, and if so, through which routes?
Yeah, sure. We have sent several trains and all our capacity about via the middle corridors. So now it's all interrupt. So that's why we now also thinking about new corridors. Our main corridor was the middle corridor as well as the north corridor via Russia. But this is now stopped due to the sanction risk and risk of Russian railways, and many clients also decide to jump back to sea air or sea freight direct to avoid risk of cargo is stuck in Russia.
So you were using the middle corridor before, right?
Yes, correct.
Great. Now, after all the things happened in Russia and you were not able to continue transiting through Russia, did you try to shift your volumes through the middle corridor or not?
Yes, we are now working on that. Our DSV Istanbul office is already doing the business on a usual way. They send or they are using the trains via middle corridor since 2 years. And we also now seeing the possibility or checking the possibility to use the routing. But in the end, the sea freight is much more less in the rates, and the transit time to European main ports is much more faster. So we are now also developing more volume on sea air business via Dubai, as well as using the fastest vessel connections from South China into the first European ports like Piraeus or Algeciras, because the transit time is around 20 to 25 days port. And I believe that the middle corridor could be a good option, but they need to invest in new infrastructure and try to avoid the reloading process, because they have more than 7 or 8 reloading processes before arrival in Europe. So, and I see there the bottlenecks and risk.
So the bottlenecks are mainly focused on infrastructure and paperwork, right?
I would say so, yes. I think the paperwork process is running well because, as explained before, the corridor is already in use since 2 years. So they only maybe need to improve the capacity of customs officers in the borders. From my point of view, the infrastructure and the crossing about the Caspian Sea are the main bottlenecks. So the Turkish railway tried to improve with more wagons and locomotive, but I think for the main volume, which was sent by the middle corridor via the south and north corridor via Kazakhstan, was too much to now shift all via Turkey. So for the Turkey market, as well as CIS countries and maybe Romania and Bulgaria, it could be an option. Before I heard to use POTI into Constanta. I have checked before this morning with our sea freight manager from Romania, and he already explained that Constanta port in Romania is heavily congested. More than 6 vessels are waiting to get berth. So I'm afraid because of the reloading processes to push this into the market. So I hope that the conflict will end soon, that we can relaunch the main routes. Okay. For Turkey, I can agree it is a good opportunity to use it via the Caspian Sea, but for the main volume, it would be
the Black Sea, right? For the main volume.
I think that there's a clear lack of capacity for shift more and more on these routings. Okay. This would only be congestions, and as you know, we discussed this on our last summit. Congestions was a word last year, and I don't want to have congestions this year too in the ports of Aktau.
Okay, so you also mentioned that you are turning to sea, and that sea is currently faster and more efficient than rail freight, which is quite impressive. So can you describe maybe a solution that you have launched using sea connections?
Yeah, sure. So actually we are launching our Algeciras Express, which means we will use Yantian and Shenzhen and send it to Algeciras port. The total transit time is around 20 to 22 days. And from there we will shift via cross-docking or via rail and send the cargo into Europe. It is a little bit higher as a rate direct to Hamburg via sea freight, but we can gain 10 to 15 days in transit time. So that's why we are now developing this process as well as sea air. I know that now in the morning there was also some news about new COVID cases in Shenzhen area and the total lockdown in Shanghai and Shenzhen. So it's a difficult task, to be honest. Okay, and
I mean, rail is considered to be the most sustainable mode of transport. How would a turn to sea freight impact your sustainability goals, maybe?
Well, DSV has a lot of different products running to gain the targets of sustainability, like in our trucking resources and so on. So I think shifting to rail was not like the highest target to agree on our targets in this place.
All right, and another question, if you allow me. What do you need as a business, as a company, to turn again back to rail, to turn more volumes on rail again? What would you need if you could define like 2 or 3 pillars that you need?
Yeah, so from my point of view, it needs to be a clear end of the conflict, because then we can try to relaunch it based on our clients, because it's not only DSV, it's also other freight forwarders in the market which has stopped the product within short notice due to the conflict. So even if there's a risk of that the cargo will be stopped, and now that if you're asking China and Chinese freight forwarders, everybody told you there will be no risk. But in the end, you need to come back to the main shippers and consignees, which are our clients, and try to bring them back on the rail. And this would mean end of conflict would be the best what we see.
Because otherwise, if the conflict does not end, of course, I think that customers, which is all about them, as you describe, will still be hesitant to use other rail routes, right?
Yes, indeed. And there's another point, which is the ethic point, but I don't want to go deeper inside because it's not a political discussion now. But we also see, for example, that some companies are already blamed in the press for using Russian resources. So everybody's also afraid to use the new Silk Route, not only of a war risk, but also they don't want to invest money in Russian railways, because in the end, Russia will do some transports, and that's why several clients don't want to also do not use the routing, because they would direct or indirect give money to the Russian railways.
And of course, this also is complicated because of the sanctions themselves, because companies maybe have repercussions. It's understandable. Huilin, do we have any questions from our audience?
Yeah, we do. As you mentioned, Romania, what modalities are you using from there to reach other cities in Europe?
Well, there's the typical 3 different points, and you can use the barge via Danube River, you can use trucking direct, or you can also use rail connections. Romania itself is also investing huge money into new rail topics. So I would say from Constanta Port, the fast way would be trucking, but yeah, you can also use river barges, for example, like inland Binnenschiffe and so on. So it's difficult because you have then the lead time will increase a lot. So from my point of view, if we reach Constanta in a short transit time, we would be able to use CO2-friendly barge or rail connections. But I would say actually we are thinking about to use direct trucks because nobody knows the all-in transit time into Constanta Port. From Turkey, we can use the usual rail connections. DSV has own block trains into Hungary from Turkey, as well as the common carriers, which are sending trains from Halkali or Kuzuku into Europe.
So
again, you have some. Sorry, yeah.
Turkey is more rail-oriented. We could say that, right? That it's easier from Turkey to use rail connections towards the European hinterland.
Yes, correct. Because usually you would use a vessel into Istanbul in usual sea freight, or you go into Koper and Trieste and go from Trieste and Koper into Europe. These are the common ways to send rail. I know that Costco and Piraeus ports are working on a rail connection from Piraeus into Europe. I know they are now sending trains to Budapest already, and they are thinking about to extend the rail route from Piraeus into Mannheim area, South Germany. But this is still under development because the whole area from Greece into Europe, for example, is also under heavy constructions. I know that China is strongly working on that too, with subsidies to increase the volume on the rail freight. But I think Romania is not a typical hinterland rail port like other cities on the Middle Sea.
And which terminal are you using in Turkey? Is the gauge difference a problem?
No, as per my information, I'm not sure if somebody can support from Kars into Kuzuku. They are using the standard rail gauges. Maybe from middle corridor you can support because I'm not 100% sure. I know that there's some reloading in cars, but is it from wide gauge into middle small gauges, or what kind of gauges are they using from Kars into Kuzuku?
Yeah, maybe Cankat could answer this question. Cankat, are you with us?
He needs to unmute.
Yeah, do you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. What about the gauges? Yes.
Yeah, I think you know the Ahılkalaki station in Georgia. It's very close to Kars, the border. There's a transfer center in the Ahılkalaki. 2 lines coming together, the white gauge and the European one, the R1. And there is we transfer the containers into the platforms, and we take them through the cars to Köseke or other stations in Turkey.
Okay.
And also audience asking, because now we are talking about political influence on the main corridor, but there are also unstable relations between the countries on the middle corridor. How do you think it will affect the rail business? Cankat, if you can answer that?
Well, we didn't experience any political conflict during the project started for middle corridor. We had, some problems happened in Kazakhstan a few months ago, but it didn't take too much time, and it didn't affect the railway business. Actually, we stopped a few days, then it worked again. So we didn't experience any political problem so far.
All right. Now we are moving towards the end of today's discussion. Maybe Huilin, We have a few more questions, final questions to address to our speakers.
Yeah, I think our audience are still a little bit confused. Could you give an overall picture of what is the capacity in comparison with the northern line of middle corridor? Maybe Cankat, you can answer that?
Well, as far as I know, last year in Northern Corridor, there was about 1.5 million TEUs. So comparing with the middle one, now middle corridor is almost 3-4% of this amount. So this is the ongoing trains, but now it's getting better with the multimodal and intermodal options. We have, for example, we had as Turkey a target of 30% volumes taken from the northern. It will, but let's be honest, it will take time. It may be a long-term perspective, but in short-term and medium-term, we should focus on multimodal options.
And you mentioned the improvement of infrastructure. How long are we talking about here? A month or years? What can we expect?
Well, there are different projects. As a clue, I can give you the largest share of the 2022 investment budget of the Ministry of Transport were allocated to railway projects. There are now ongoing projects of logistics centers, new equipments, railways, but let's say they are actually medium-term or long-term projects.
All right, Cankat, one of the final questions that I would like to address to you. Briefly, is it worth it for companies to take rail through the middle corridor? What's the added value to it? Why not just go by sea? So, in brief, what is the main argument for companies to stick to using rail through the middle corridor?
Well, you know, Nikos, we experienced a COVID time. And I think the companies understood that one option is no option. If you only focused on the seaway, you can have problems. For example, nowadays in Shenzhen, the ports are closed. You know the reason. So I offer companies to have more options for their transports, for their supply chain operations. Middle corridor is a serious option. Yes, there are some limitations, some capacity problems, but we can solve it. We have solved before and we can solve it. And in this manner, I think companies should take into account that middle corridor is an option for them.
Okay.
And what about the cargo from China to Central Asia? If all the focus are on the Euro-Asian road, what are the capacity for them?
Well, actually, I'm not the expert of the transports from China to CIS countries, but I think they are already running. I'm not sure about it.
And maybe I can ask this question to Mr. Fang. Hello, Mr. Fang, are you still there?
Hello, can you repeat the question? We didn't hear that.
So if all the capacity are taken by the shippers from China to Europe, how about the customers in Central Asia? Are they conflicting, these two demands from the market?
We don't think there will be any conflict because there are different area, different choice. And if I hear the question right.
And do you see more investment coming for the infrastructure along the way? From governmental or private business level?
In which area do you mean?
In overall. Maybe Gansu government is investing or other countries?
Yes, there's some investment coming in the future and very soon in Gansu.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like, if it's possible, to address a final question to Mr. Fang. If you lose cargo to the sea, to sea transport, what are the chances that this cargo will return to rail once the conditions get better? Do you think that if you lose cargo to sea, you will be able to attract it back to rail?
Actually, that's not what we expect. We sincerely hope that won't happen, that our customers are taken by the sea transport.
That's positive.
And also we have our partners. It's a GSC partnership Fung. They also joined the meeting today, and they will deal with sea transport problems for us in Georgia.
All right. Thank you very much then. Now I would like to close this webinar with a question that I will address to all three of our speakers. I would like to know how do you look into the future and whether you're positive about how things will develop. Of course, it's not possible to know how things will develop, but what feeling do you have from the market? Is the current situation a problem or maybe an opportunity for something better? And I'd like to ask Nils to answer first.
So from my point of view, I'm looking into a positive future because the new Silk Road has developed a lot in the past 10 years. And I would say as soon as the conflict will be solved, the new Silk Road will grow anyway. So I think the middle corridor get now the chance to show what the capacity is, and maybe also to have some urgent containers on that. So I think now Turkey and also all the other Caspian Sea countries are seeing this as a great chance to develop the corridor as well. So I think both corridors will play a role. But yeah, in the end, I hope only that the conflict will be ended and we can use the fastest routings like Kazakhstan again. So.
Okay, Cankat, what do you think?
Well, I'm totally agree with Mr. Müller. And this is a problem and an opportunity at the same time. We should focus on the positive side and we should create solutions. That's what we should do as industry parties in logistics. So I think we will manage it in some extent, and we will create some value-added opportunity solutions to our customers.
All right. And Mr. Fang, what is your opinion on the question?
Actually, we have a little different opinion about this. We think it's an opportunity, with or without the war. We think it should be, and it should have been a very important route from China to Europe. And we should start it much earlier. And because in the traditional road, there are over 15,000 trains from Russia to Belarus. So there's a very serious congestion. And if we invest more on this middle corridor road, there will be more opportunity. And also, actually, Mr. Fang expressed his expectation of cooperation with other partners or customers who are focusing on this road. Like, actually, we are discussing and working on the cooperation with DSV. Sir, we are actually discussing the cooperation with your company. And also we are expecting more cooperation with other companies, members who attended this meeting. And that's our expectation in the future.
That's a nice conclusion. It's really nice to for all of you to think that this is actually an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for more synergy, for more developments, and making the corridor better. So I would like to close this discussion with this, Yildiz as well. I think that you agree. I want to thank all three of our speakers. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And special thanks to Mr. Fang and his assistants from China. Because of the time difference, etc., we made this happen again with a live connection. Thank you very much, and greetings from Rotterdam to China again. Thanks to all our speakers. Now,
thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Now, Yildiz, before we close, we have something special
coming.
Exactly. We have something special to announce, because in this webinar we discussed about the middle corridor, we discussed about the disruptions, but there is something bigger coming, as we can see here. There is a Rail Freight Summit special edition taking place in a couple of weeks from now, on 6 April, in Brussels. And why is this a special edition, Yildiz?
Because first of all, we are in a very special times, and I think investment or opportunities are never too late. So let's face the reality and get together again. We have seen that even though a lot of international giants dropped off, our main rail players, and even insurance companies are still stay on rail, which means the possible risks are actually under control. So this is the time that we really need to get together to look at what is going on now, and what's the future, what's the alternatives, and what does sanctions mean for the new Silk Road.
Precisely, because it's all about bringing the industry together through synergy and discussions and cooperation. Now, if you want to already participate and secure your position in the special Rail Freight Summit edition, you can either go to www.railfreightsummit.com, or we have prepared the QR code that will display on the screen currently. Yes, you can scan this QR code and you can land in the events page. We will keep the QR code on the screen for a bit of time after we close this webinar. Now, I think that was all for today, Yildiz, right?
Yes.
Great. Now, okay, thank you everyone for watching. I hope that this has been a valuable webinar for all of you and could help you at least a bit to find some solutions to your supply chain. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a good rest of the day.